Hello everybody, Resonance here, and today I'll be giving you all my commentary on an expert Prismata game between Timex and Dirty Magic. This match is from round 2 of the Prismata Alpha World Championships, and the tournament features many incredibly talented players. Now of course, keep in mind that as of this recording, Prismata is still very early in development, so you can expect a lot of the interface and graphics to improve over time. That being said, if you're a fan of games like Age of Empires 2, Hearthstone, Dominion, or chess, then I definitely recommend trying Prismata since it combines elements from each of those games. If you have no idea what Prismata is, feel free to check the video description below for a link to watch my detailed tutorial and introduction on the game. For the purposes of this commentary, I'm going to try and keep things relatively simple, but it's still a good idea to watch the tutorial first anyway. I will also have more information on Prismata as well as instructions on how to get a key. This is my first time casting this game, so you can expect my commentary to improve over time. And as always, this is just extra content and not a replacement for Age of Empires 2, in case you're not interested. Alright, so without further ado, let's jump straight into Game 3 in this best of 3 series between Timex and Dirty Magic. Now, if you're wondering why I'm starting with Game 3, it's because I think I prefer to just pick my favorite replays rather than cast an entire series. That way we get to see the best games. I'm sure though that there will be times when I do cast every match in a series, and as always, I am open to your feedback. Okay, so now into the game itself. This is what the beginning of every Prismata game looks like, and I'm going to briefly go over the basics. Both players are going to start with drones and engineers, and the player that goes second, which in this case is Dirty Magic, is going to start with 1 extra drone. These are the basic economy units of the game, and they're going to generate resources that players are going to take turns spending very carefully on purchasing units from this tab on the left. The units that you see on the left are going to be in every single game of Prismata. This is the Prismata base set. And this secondary tab of units is randomly generated. These units are chosen from a huge, constantly expanding pool of units at the start of every game. And since, half the units in the game are randomly chosen, this means that essentially Prismata becomes a game of being able to adapt to the unit set and react to what your opponent is doing, rather than simply just memorizing a build order. So that's what I really like about Prismata, is that every game is kept fresh due to the random set of units. Now, of course, the thing is here is that players are going to be spending the first few turns of the game building up their economy by purchasing, additional drones, perhaps an additional engineer as well, and then they have to choose what type of technology they want to invest in. There are 3 different types of technology in Prismata. We have the Conduit, which produces green, we have the Blast Forge, which produces blue, and the Animus that produces 2 red. Keep in mind though that the Conduit's green resources are actually stored at the end of your turn, same thing with the gold that you get from drones. If you don't spend any, then you still have it available. Whereas the blue and red that you don't spend, it does end up decaying. Once players have built up their economy and then they've purchased enough drones, then they're going to start investing in various military units, attackers, and defenders, of course. And essentially both players are going to be trading attacks back and forth, trying to defend against them until one player has no units remaining, and then the game is over. Now, as we jump straight into the beginning of this game, well, after a rather lengthy introduction, this unit set is crazy, so I'll just start off by saying that, the thing with Prismata is you're never really sure when you get into the game. It's very rare if a unit set is sort of cut and dry as to what strategy is really the best, and this game is incredibly well balanced actually, and the developers are constantly looking for feedback to improve upon that, so a dominant strategy isn't always present, and here it is really unclear as to what is going on. Both players are going to start with a very standard, 2 drones at the beginning, and I really recommend doing that. And oh, by the way, before I get too deep into this, if you try this game out, by the way, I definitely recommend practicing initially against the various bots. Work your way up. If you're struggling with like basic bot, don't worry about that. It might take some time before you get, comfortable enough with the game that you can beat it, but don't be discouraged. Keep trying, experiment. Definitely spend the first few turns buying drones, pick a technology, then start working on attackers. I also recommend, using walls for defense, trying to take advantage of Absorb, but I've got all that covered in a tutorial. Don't be alarmed if you can't beat Masterbot consistently or even at all, as Masterbot's very good. So yeah, don't worry about it, guys. The AI is very strong, and when it comes to this unit set, there's just so much going on here. There's so many powerful units, and this light blue bar that you see here, that's the supply. So there are actually a ridiculous amount of legendary units that you can only buy 1 copy of, and there are units here with like only 4 supply as well, and there's actually only 1 unit in this set that actually has 10 or more supply, and that will be the Hellhound. Players won't be able to buy any more of that, and they're this applies separate, like it's per player. So of course this means that we get like 10 Hellhounds total per player, and this is honestly abnormal. There are a lot of like ridiculously big tech investments in this game, like getting up to 4 green, 3 blue, or 4 red is going to be really tricky. And Lucina Spinos is a very powerful attacker that you always have to be on the lookout for, but I do think by taking a glance at this set that the existence of something like Endotherm Kit, which threatens a ridiculous amount of freeze, and if you're not aware, this chill mechanic is like it's not really damage. If you chill a unit, and we'll see this later, if you chill a unit, then if it has chill greater than or equal to its health, then it can't block. So it's a way to like sort of disable blockers, and Endotherm Kit is a great way to like encourage a breach, and that's when your opponent no longer has enough defenders that they can defend against your attack, and then you can go and kill stuff. Lucina Spinos is really vulnerable to a breach due to only having 1 health, so I would say that Lucina Spinos is probably not the way to go here. When you're like picking your units from the random set, I usually recommend checking to see what colors are dominant, and here I think really any color is certainly worthwhile. In fact, I expect probably all 3 colors to see play in this specific game. Sometimes though the set is a little bit more dominant, and for example, if there are no green units in the set, you might still want a conduit anyway later, just for the utility of being able to defend with force fields, being able to essentially double the health of your drones when you have to leave them on defense later, which is inevitable, because you're trying your best not to get breached, and maybe you need Gauss cannons too to support. But like, it's not the kind of thing that you want to be thinking about early. And what I like about this specific replay is that Dirty Magic here is going for a different opening than his opponent. Timex here is going to go, 2 drones, and he's going to go Slap On and Animus, so he's going for red. Dirty Magic is going to boom up though. He's going to get a 3rd Engineer, which you can sort of compare to getting a, like a fast expansion in like StarCraft, or getting additional town centers, like a 4 town center boom in AoE 2. 3rd Engineer is something if you just want to ramp up your drone production, because you can only make a drone, 1 drone per engineer that you have, essentially. So, Dirty Magic going green. He has more drones than his opponent. He's up by 2 drones. Timex going to be with a smaller economy, but he's got this Animus. And the Animus is a very, very aggressive technology. All these colors, you can kind of compare them to Magic. Like blue is the more like defensive one. It has great efficient defenders. Green's more like combo oriented, and also green units are fragile, so any damage that they take, they just keep on them. Whereas blue units, like this wall, any damage that they take that's not fatal, they get to heal up at the end of each turn, and this absorb mechanic is huge. It's something that players really have to take advantage of, and you always want your biggest absorber to like live if you can, but assign the maximum amount of damage to it. So if you have something like a wall, anything that deals less than 3, so like 2 or 1 damage threatened from your opponent, does literally nothing. Whereas if you have like Gauss cannons, it still hurts you. So you get that damage to stick. And then red's just very aggressive. It's full of all these like cost-efficient attackers like the Tarsier. When I call something a cost-efficient attacker, we're usually comparing it to the Tarsier, and we also have the Rhino here as well. I would say that when it comes to the strategy in this set, again, it's very, very open. I think that the Gaussite Symbiote is a good idea to at least look at, because this thing generates a green and an attack every single turn, and with that green, you could very easily transition into something like an Endotherm Kit. You'll already have an Animus, and I think Endotherm Kit here is going to be very strong. I expect to see perhaps both players even investing in an Endotherm Kit eventually, and since Dirty Magic has a conduit, I'm sure that's on his mind. Don't think Lucina Spinos will see play here, because again, it's very vulnerable to this freeze. There's a lot of freeze. The real question is though, does this very aggressive Animus from Timex actually defeat Dirty Magic's more eco-oriented setup? And I'm curious to see exactly what he's planning to do here. Something that concerns me is that there's a huge blocker here like Hannibal. Hannibal has 7 HP, and his front lines are going to be attacked directly, so your opponent doesn't really get that much absorb value out of it. Hannibal, a very cool unit. Once your opponent has like a flat 7 attack, you just kind of kill it, and Hannibal loses a lot of value. I do expect Hannibal, though, to be used here, because it is such a huge blocker, such a huge absorber, that it could really deny some value from Endotherm Kit. And likewise, perhaps since Odin is in here, and Odin has a reasonably high amount of HP, it's not fragile. I wonder if getting breached by something like Endotherm Kit is really gonna matter that much, because this unit has such high HP. I wonder if the Odin and the Steel Splitters it summons will actually be able to will actually die to a breach. So anyway, we see on this turn, by the way, that Timex has 1 damage coming out from his Gaussite symbiote. The damage, of course, remaining here is represented on this little icon, and that's how many blockers Dirty Magic has left. When you're attacking your opponent, you get to choose, your opponent gets to choose how to assign that damage that you're threatening. So Dirty Magic here going to lose an engineer. Timex gets the first shot. Timex is going to be our aggressive, rushy player in this particular game, and Dirty Magic is going to be playing a more macro-oriented late game style here. And we know this because he's getting a Blast Forge again because he's trying to think of some defenses. He's still just pumping out drones like crazy, and Timex is trying to put on the pressure while he still can. Pick off a couple of engineers, and once these engineers are down, then Dirty Magic's economy is going to be threatened. So I'm curious to see what he's going to do here. I expect him to snag a wall. This is great because, again, any damage that's like, 2 or 1 isn't going to do anything. If it's less than 3, it just gets completely absorbed by this wall. And this wall it's able to block immediately as prompts, so you don't have to wait for it to build. And we're getting in that stage of the game where it looks like Dirty Magic is going to try and get an early Odin. And if I had to guess, this Gaussite symbiote opening from Timex makes me think he's considering Endotherm Kit. And there it is, the Endotherm Kit. It's gonna, in 4 turns, all of these parts of the Endotherm Kit are gonna come into play. We have these Frostbites, which will, of course, sacrifice themselves to chill something for 3, which will essentially just destroy a wall. Well, not destroy it, but remove its ability to defend for that turn. And these Cryo Rays, which can chill for 1, and you can use them 3 times before they run out of gas. So Timex is going for a very aggressive build here with the Gaussite Symbiote Endotherm combo, and I think that's very strong, and I'm interested to see how this plays out here, because Dirty Magic style very different. He's going to be rolling with Odin, and Odin isn't actually particularly breach vulnerable, as when you're playing against Freeze, or in general, you have to imagine, like, what happens if you lose all your blockers, right? If you happen to get breached, then your opponent gets to choose where to assign the remaining damage. How much can they really do if they breach you for, like, say, 3 or something tiny? Well, Timex is actually going to be very vulnerable to being breached himself, as he does have a Tarsier with only 1 HP, and you always want to be thinking about killing the biggest value guys. Drones are definitely fine to kill, and they usually die first, but if you can kill some, attackers like a Gaussite Symbiote or Tarsier, those are usually good to snipe off. But if Odin is going to be the bulk of Dirty Magic's plan here, then getting breached isn't actually that bad for him, but we'll have to see. So essentially, now Dirty Magic is on a clock. He has 4 turns now until Timex's Frostbites and Cryo Rays from his Endotherm Kit are indeed finished constructing, and that's when things get really bad. 5 defense here for Dirty Magic, 2 attack here incoming for Timex, gonna get completely negated by that wall, and we're moving on now to the sort of mid-stage of the game. Odin Rush is gonna be very strong. Odin, of course, is one of those units where you can, consume a Steel Splitter. Okay, so, like, the thing is some units, like Odin and a Steel Splitter, if you click them, if you use a click ability, it means that they don't block for that turn. So you can choose to leave them to attack or to block. So if you use Odin's ability, this is such an interesting unit. It consumes a Steel Splitter, it does a huge burst of damage, but by consuming a Steel Splitter, you lose damage in the long run. And the question is whether you leave Odin on defense or you use him for the burst here. And another thing with Odin as well is, notice how when Timex is defending, the thing is when you buy Odin, you kind of force your opponent to over-defend. You don't even have to fire Odin. You don't have to use his click ability. You can just leave him on defense, and your opponent might be scared that you could do that. You can sort of bluff that. And then they have to try and make sure that they always have at least 1 more defense than your opponent's attack. You always want to keep your defense at least 1 more than your opponent's attack most of the time. That way you get maximum value out of Absorb. Let's say 7 damage comes this way. Timex can lose all of his engineers, he can lose his force field, and then assign the remaining 2 damage to the wall. So the wall will live. That's how you get Absorb value. The thing is, though, is Dirty Magic doesn't even need to fire Odin. He can if he wants to, and I expect him to, just so he can kill a lot more of these blockers, get some damage in. But he doesn't even have to. He's already forced Timex to, lose a drone and transform it into a force field. So that's already pretty good. In this case, it's just threatened damage, and I do expect Dirty Magic, though, to actually fire this thing, because if he doesn't, he'll actually only have 3 attack. The numbers that you see here are actually a little bit misleading sometimes, in that your opponent doesn't always have to do that. It's like the maximum amount of damage possible, right? So you see here that it says 3, and the thing is, though, is that when it's not his turn, it'll show that Dirty Magic will have a total of 7 possible. So this is like the maximum threatened attack value, and he's gonna fire this Odin this turn. So imagine if he only had 3 damage, right? He would be able to kill an engineer, then there'd be 2 damage left. It would just go, the rest would get assigned to this wall. So if he doesn't activate Odin, Dirty Magic only kills an engineer, and that's not very good. Killing an engineer is something, but it's not great value. Whereas activating engineer, he's losing a Steel Splitter, sure, but he manages to kill all these engineers and he's going to kill this force field. The wall will live, but the difference between killing one engineer and then 3 in a force field is pretty darn big, and Dirty Magic is kind of on a clock here. He needs to watch out as these Frostbites and Cryo Rays are indeed constructing, and these Tarsiers, very efficient attackers. Very breach vulnerable but efficient. They take a while to get out, but once they get out, they can do so very much damage. This Animus here is pretty cool. I like seeing this thrown in. You know, I always wondered at the start of this replay if any sort of Hannibal play was relevant. I do think that Hellhound will actually be pretty good here. I think that Dirty Magic can get this Animus, and then he can buy Hellhounds, which will give him like an engineer and some constant attack threat, and that's going to be very good against something like this Endotherm Kit Freeze, just being able to, you know, apply some pressure, attack back, and have some more defense. Hannibal, I expect to see play in this set. I'm not sure if that's the type of thing that players could have rushed in this game, but that's a topic that I would have to go on a lengthy tangent about. How good is Hannibal in this set? It will see play, though. I almost guarantee that both players will, at some point, buy a Hannibal, at least for the huge absorb value, to try and deal with this Endotherm kit. I expect Dirty Magic to do that. I think this Animus is for both the Hellhounds and Hannibals, and I like this a lot, as this triple blue, like, he's already gotten the value out of it. He's already bought Odin. He has to transition into something else now. And at least he can still spend the blue on Hellhounds and Hannibals. If these guys weren't in the set, then Odin would be significantly worse, because then you can only spend the blue on the base set walls and steel splitters. So usually when you're playing Prismata, you want to be basing your strategy at least somewhat partially around the units that are randomly available, as they're generally slightly stronger than the base sets. So that's something to consider. So we can see that Timex loses a lot on defense right there, and Dirty Magic going to be replacing that Steel Splitter that he just used with his Odin with another one, and I like that. He's going to also grab another Engineer again, a little bit of preemptive defense here, as well as an additional drone. And by the way, getting breached for neutral like this is also terrible, because you lose you lose your absorb value. So there's no way that Timex can leave himself like this. You want your defense to usually be at least 1 higher than your opponent's attack, but at the same time, you also don't want to over-defend too. And Timex could take a gamble here, by the way, and just leave it at 7. Maybe Dirty Magic doesn't fire his Odin, and maybe Timex doesn't get breached. But in general, you really want to avoid getting breached for neutral, because then you lose all those walls. You want some blocker left over. You want your biggest absorber to survive if you can. And well, Timex is going to be throwing down some more Tarsiers. The real question is, by the way, is when should he be detonating these Gaussite symbiotes? Because once he gets 3 grain in storage, which he has, he can kill this Gaussite symbiote and turn into 5 Gauss charges. And the Gauss charge is essentially just 5 damage. There was actually a point in this game, by the way, if I skip back slightly, right before this Odin was bought, I think that he could probably have detonated this Gaussite symbiote at some point, and then, he might have been able to just deny this Odin purchase entirely by detonating this. Although I guess he decided that he was going to wait a little bit, and I think that that's fair. Either way, we're getting to this point in the game where there's a lot more attack being built up for Timex. Right now he's sort of at this race where he wants to try and mass up as much attack as possible in sync with his Frostbites and Cryo Rays, and that's why I actually think it's totally fine to just, sit back and not, consider trying to punish your opponent for getting that Odin too early. It's okay, I think, to wait and then try and sync this up with your Endotherm kit. So yeah, he'll probably sacrifice his Gaussite symbiotes with the Endotherm kit, I think. He'll try and time them up. And it looks like Dirty Magic is going to get a preemptive Hannibal right here, and I like this a lot, as getting this Hannibal right now means that he's going to need a lot of defense when this huge burst comes his way, and it's coming really fast. He's going to need this Hannibal here. Being able to absorb for 7, it doesn't matter if it gets killed since his front line, which means his opponent can just kill it directly. You don't get to choose where that damage is assigned. Your opponent has the option of just being able to kill it right out if he has enough damage. I think that right now, Timex is just going to try and get up as much damage as humanly possible, and Dirty Magic is just going to try and mass up a lot of blockers, and getting this Hellhound as well is going to add in an extra Engineer. He's got a lot of defense ready for this, as he has 1 more turn, and now Timex... Here's the thing, though, is that Timex has to spend a lot of his resources on, walls and force fields over the last few turns from Dirty Magic, so that's why he's been firing his Odin so often, and I think that's absolutely the correct play. Being able to fire your Odin like that basically means that Timex has to spend all of his resources on defense rather than buying more attack, and that really weakens the value of his Endotherm kit. Remember that, freeze is a way to get into your opponent's economy and just breach them, and then start killing their drones, start killing their military units. But the thing is that the freeze itself doesn't kill anything. Like, you can freeze a wall, but the wall still exists afterwards. You need attack to back it up. And that's why Dirty Magic is constantly firing his Odin. I think that's the right play here, because he's forcing Timex to replace his lost defense. And if you don't, then, you know, Timex will be able to build up, you know, he'll be able to keep his existing defenders, at least a lot more of them. He'll be able to spend his money on attack, and that makes the Endotherm kit ever so devastating. And now, well, Timex is looking for a way to defend against this. He does have more defense than his opponent's attack, so he's good to go, and he's now his time, of course, to detonate that Gaussite Symbiote. That's a huge amount of attack coming Dirty Magic's way. I have no idea if he'll be able to hold this off. He'll have to leave, like, everything back. I think he'll have to leave the Odin and both Steel Splitters back. Thankfully, though, Dirty Magic doesn't take that much damage on the previous turn, so this is it. Like, if we take a look at this, that is so much damage being threatened. So there's 16 defenders currently for Dirty Magic, but he can also not attack with these Steel Splitters to go bring that value up further. That's 16 freeze being threatened and 12 attacks. So you can, it doesn't always work out perfectly this way, but you can kind of combine that number. And then Dirty Magic still needs to have at least one more than this if he doesn't want to get breached for neutral or something. So 28 damage coming his way. Can Dirty Magic somehow muster a way to get, you know, at least 28 defense this turn? And well, it's going to be tricky. One of the nice things about Timex's line of play here, and that's why I like that he's trying this sort of Gaussite Symbiote Endotherm kit combination, is because when the thing detonates, when his Gaussite Symbiote detonates, once he gets out the Endotherm kit, and the Symbiote also lets him get the Endotherm kit a lot easier, is that this means that, like, Dirty Magic will probably have to leave almost everything on defense. He won't be able to attack back, and, well, that means that Timex doesn't take nearly as much pressure in that case. He can just try and build off the back of this. You know, there was a point in the early game that I was trying to mention earlier where he could have detonated his Gaussite Symbiote instead of spending all the gold on all the green on the Endotherm kit. I still think I like this a little bit better. Dirty Magic might not be, like, super breach vulnerable here, but I can't stress exactly how bad this is. The Dirty Magic has to leave everything on defense like this, and he still has to force field up because, again, it's 28 versus 30 right now. So Dirty Magic will be able to successfully defend against this. But here's the thing. When you're talking about this concept of threatened damage, okay, Timex doesn't even need to use his freeze here, but Dirty Magic has to be scared that the freeze might come his way. And by the way, in the future, my commentaries on these actual games will go by much faster. I'm just trying to sort of tailor this to the players who are a lot newer to Prismata, as you know that most of you guys either haven't played it yet or you've played a little bit of it and you might be struggling. So that's why I'm going a little more in-depth here than I normally would. Looks like, though, that Timex is going to focus fire down this Hannibal because it does indeed have front line. And, you know, he's going to have to use his Gauss charges here, like, because at the start of your turn, it just happens. You can't choose to. The real question is how he's going to use his freeze. It looks like he's going to try and freeze 2 engineers here to make it a little bit harder for Dirty Magic to defend. Try and, you know, exploit his defensive granularity, as we call it, the flexibility in defense. And then maybe he can, you know, force the pick off of, say, a force field or something like that here would be pretty good. He might even, okay, yeah, so he's actually going to freeze. He's going to freeze the force field and the engineers, and this means that Timex is now guaranteed to kill a wall from Dirty Magic. These things that are frozen cannot actually defend, so a wall has to go down here to the freeze from those cryo rays. And that's why I love cryo rays so much. It's just a unit that really can exploit your opponent's granularity, make it a lot, you know, make it really get like maximum value from your attack, I guess. Your damage is a lot scarier with this guy, and it's a shame I'm not seeing any Gauss Fabricator play this game, as Gauss Fab is my favorite unit, at least currently, or one of them, and this thing is like the king of value, but I do think Gauss Fab is too slow in this set. I think Corpus might also be a little bit too slow here. I don't know if any player can afford to get a double Animus, but it's a thought. Corpus would be a lot better if Lucina Spinos was better in this set, but Lucina Spinos is, you know, with only 1 HP, is very vulnerable to Endotherm. You know, you get breached for 1, Lucina's down, that's so much value. Now the drain, and now Dirty Magic has to leave almost everything back in defense. He's only able to threaten 2 attack here from the Hellhound, and this is, like, devastating for him, because he has to leave his Odin back, he has to leave his Steel Splitters back. He cannot fire Odin anymore, because if he activates it to consume it, the Steel Splitter will not block anymore. That is bad news bears for him, and with only threatening 2 attack, Timex can just soak it up with his wall, no problems whatsoever, and well, there is a bright side here for Dirty Magic, though. He does actually have, like, essentially enough defense that he's able to just leave these guys back. He doesn't have to spend everything on defense, and he can still throw in some extra Hellhounds, which he's doing. And I like Hellhound as well, because, you know, add some defense while threatening attack. Dirty Magic needs to build up some like constant attack that he can use if he wants to be able to beat Timex here. And there's a huge economy discrepancy between both players, by the way. Dirty Magic ahead by a substantial amount of drones. Timex being our very aggressive rushy player this game with a very tiny economy, and he still has so much freeze left. He'll be able to activate each cryo ray an additional time, so he has, 2 shots left from each cryo ray. That's quite a bit of freeze. He hasn't used his frostbites left. He can just, use them whenever he wants. Timex gonna be ramping up some own attack of his own, buying some Tarsiers, buying some Hellhounds. The Hellhound, of course, gonna give him another Engineer, and Timex is considering a secondary Blast Forge, and I think that's a good idea, as I'm not sure if Timex necessarily has enough tech at this point in the game. One thing that you want to be really careful of, though, is not over-teching, and that is buying technology that you can't actually use at any point, really. And you have to be careful, because, it's okay to get, a conduit and not spend the green for a while, because the gold and green that you don't spend are stored. But with the Blast Forge, then all that stuff goes to waste. So you have to make sure you can actually use it. And perhaps a point will come in this game where Timex needs to go for something like a double Hellhound play. Maybe he needs to grab, 2 walls per turn. He might actually need that extra tech, especially because the question is, does he detonate this Gaussite Symbiote? If he does, then he won't have any stable green income, but then he gets a little extra burst. I don't know, though. Timex's economy is so tiny that maybe he can't use the extra blue from the Blast Forge. We'll have to see, but it looks like he's not going to do it. He's thinking really hard about this turn. We're getting to the sort of end stages of this game, and we're kind of at a little bit of a stalemate here. Again, it says that Dirty Magic is threatening 10, so Timex has to pretend as though Dirty Magic might, go crazy. It's a gambit. He might go crazy. He might attack with everything. So Timex has to defend against that as a preemptive measure. And that's not always right to do, but in this case, that's debatable. He's over-defending a little bit, but he has to be... It's a really, really careful dance here. If Timex gets breached at all, he's so breach vulnerable compared to Dirty Magic. If Dirty Magic is being scared of getting breached, and some of his more threatening guys have reasonable amount of health, imagine how scared Timex is he could lose these Tarsiers, Hellhounds, everything. That'd be so bad for him, and oh my goodness. Dirty Magic gonna go snag his own Endotherm kit. If you're wondering why some of these units look a little weird, this Frostbite actually has the skin, so Dirty Magic has a bunch of skins. By the way, Prismata completely free to play. You don't actually buy any units from a cash shop or anything. You're on a completely even playing field. You have access to everything. You just buy skins and stuff. So it's just cosmetic items. So that's why he's got this little cupcake Frostbite, and that's why his engineers look a little different. That's the hand-painted engineer. My personal favorite skin set is the Medieval Warriors one. I love that. So yeah, this here Endotherm kit. Generally, when it comes to Endotherm kits, you can counter your opponent's Endotherm kit by getting your own, within the first few turns of your opponent doing so. This is bizarre in that Dirty Magic has waited, I think, 6 turns after Timex got his own Endotherm kit to actually, counter with his own. I do think, though, that that's fine to wait this long. It's always going to be different every single game, and the idea with the counter Endotherm kit is that, if you get breached heavily by your opponent's Endotherm kit, then your Endotherm kit comes at the next turn or so, and then you get to breach your opponent for everything and blow up all their stuff, too. Mutually assured destruction. Absolutely devastating. Dirty Magic, though, saving up for this one, and perhaps that's okay, as, we'll have to see. Maybe this Endotherm kit's too slow. It's hard to tell, though, as, both players here in a little bit of trouble. The thing is, it's very easy to defend in the early game, but over time, as we get to the later stages of the game, it becomes more and more costly to defend, as you still need to threaten some attack back. If you want to actually win the game, you need to be able to, kill your opponent's attackers, or the value just gets higher and higher and higher, and eventually you just get overwhelmed. And Dirty Magic right now threatening a remarkably small amount of attack due to the fact that he has to leave his Odin and Steel Splitter on defense. Right now, Timex is thinking very carefully. He's starting to getting breached for neutral, and is this the turn where he's finally going to use his freeze? Now, Odin is the biggest defender in this set, again, because he's got that 4 defense, well, minus Hannibal, of course. He's the biggest defender that Dirty Magic has right now. And this means that Dirty Magic always wants to have Odin take 3 damage if he's leaving it on the fence, and then just assign the rest to the rest of his units. So by freezing Odin here, Timex is making it a lot harder for Dirty Magic to defend, and he's going to have to lose, a lot more units than he normally otherwise would. It's going to really muck up his defense. And Timex is going to waste a charge on these cryo rays here. We'll just use a charge on them. And, well, the thing is that these cryo rays, the thing is he will still be able to use them all again, so it's not like that's premature, I guess. He'll be able to use them all one more time, and he's saving them all to make sure that he has 1 charge left on every cryo ray, and he'll be able to use all of his frostbites at the same time to just go, kill Dirty Magic in one one big swing. So he has to make sure that he doesn't use the last one of these beams. I wonder if he actually needed to use all of those shots there. Maybe he could have actually saved 1 point of freeze. Maybe he didn't need to freeze one engineer. I'm not 100% sure, but either way, looks like Timex does have to probably think of something that if he wants to defend here. It looks like he's actually going to detonate his Gaussite symbiotes. This means that he's not going to have any more green for the rest of the game. He has one in storage, so you can get 1 force field, but he's not going to have like a stable production of green here, and he's also going to lose, you know, a flat 1 attack per turn. But this does mean that he gets the 5 Gauss charges, which will detonate next turn, and now... well, Dirty Magic has to lose quite a little bit on defense here. He even has to leave 2 drones back. He has to tell them not to gather so he doesn't get the gold from them. He has to leave them back for defense. And that's worthwhile to make sure that you don't get breached. And again, he's doing this in case of Armageddon, in case Timex goes crazy and he detonates all of his frostbites and cryo rays. And as this game is really, really close to ending, this is where things get intense in that, oh, one little mistake will lose you the game at this point. Gosh. Frostbites and cryo rays coming out next turn. So now, holy crap, like, this is going to be really scary for Timex. He's going to have a very difficult time defending against this massive amount of freeze incoming. The question is, though, is does Dirty Magic have enough attack to back this up? When both players are starting to breach each other, like, Dirty Magic is a lot less breach vulnerable, considering that his units like Odin and Steel Splitter have so much HP, and holy shit, he's going to have to leave all of his drones back to go defend against this, won't he? Wow, that is really bad. He's going to have to leave all this back, but again, he doesn't have much of a choice. And wow, if he leaves all of his drones back, that means he still gets breached for 1. That's 32 to 31, so he'll still actually lose a Hellhound here. Dirty Magic, you know, like, even though his stuff is less breach vulnerable... oh, Jesus. It might be less breach vulnerable here, but does he have, like, enough attackers to actually kill all of Timex's stuff? Because Timex has a lot of Hellhounds, he has a lot of Tarsiers, he has 5 Tarsiers, 4 Hellhounds. He'll have some Rhinos left too. Some of them will have some charges, and it's going to be really, really tricky. I wonder if Timex has enough damage to kill these Odins and Steel Splitters, but he might. Maybe Dirty Magic is the one who doesn't have enough damage in this case, but things getting really scary. Curious moment for both players. Is Timex going to lose a few Rhinos here, the ones without any charges left on them, because he can only attack them twice, and now that's a lot of damage coming his way. Dirty Magic threatening a whopping 29, and this is when we reach this late stage in the game where both players are going to get breached, and their armies have to fight each other now. Whose army is a little bit better? Okay, well, I'm going to put like a slight little advantage here for Timex, because... I mean, it's tricky, because, like, Timex is breaching right now. So he's going to kill all of these. He's going to kill all these drones. He's going to kill these engineers, and he's going to be able to kill 2 Hellhounds. This is a really tiny breach, so I'll preface this by saying it's a really small breach. Doesn't seem that substantial. The problem that we'll notice here is that, again, you know, freezing these things like force fields, walls, engineers, Odin, and whatnot, they're still alive. They just didn't block that turn, so Timex still has to go deal with them. Still, though, the thing is that Dirty Magic will only be able to fire Odin twice, and he's lost all of his drones, so he can't buy anything else. So even though his attackers are pretty bulky, he can only fire Odin twice. He's a very finite number of damage here. He can only fire Odin twice, and then Odin does not attack anymore once there are no more Steel Splitters, which is pretty devastating. So... I don't think the Dirty Magic actually has enough damage to remove all of these units here as well, because he only gets 2 shots from this Odin, and these Hellhounds will be some of the first things to die. There's just not enough attack left for Dirty Magic, I think, when his Frostbites and Cryo Rays come out, that he'll be able to kill Timex. Timex will probably be able to leave all of his drones back here, and he should be okay. I just love this Hannibal, able to get so much value on defense here. Both players making great use of that, and now it's up to Timex to defend. If he can successfully defend against this turn, then he wins. The question is he able to? I put the slight edge in him, but he does still have to watch out for those Odin Steel Splitters, which are alive. It's going to be really close. Timex still going to get breached here almost no matter what. The question is, how many drones does he want to leave back? And he can't leave more drones back than this, because he spent that other gold on the Rhino and the wall, so he has to basically get breached here no matter what. And he's going to lose a Tarsier or a Hellhound. I think that's okay, though. I think that's okay. Although, Dirty Magic still has to deal with the... yeah, this Hannibal is just so very good here. This is really tricky. This is the moment of truth here, and Timex is really thinking about this very hard. Will he be able to defend against this? And I think he just barely, like, being able to only get breached here for 1. Well, here's the moment of truth. So Dirty Magic going to start off by killing this Hannibal, and now it's time to use the freeze, as he has no economy whatsoever. That's 0 gold income. This number on the left is how much gold you'll have next turn. or how much gold, yeah, you could have next turn. And, well, yeah, he's going to kill the Hannibal, but he's going to actually leave the rest of his freeze back, and... He's going to leave the rest of his freeze back, and it looks like Timex is indeed going to swing here. I just don't think that Dirty Magic, like, will have enough damage that once he detonates all of his freeze that he'll be able to get in there. And Dirty Magic, I guess, like, didn't want to fire his freeze that turn because he knows he has to kill the Hannibal first anyway. And Odin, of course, going to be soaking up that 3 damage and then living. And that's 1 Steel Splitter down, so Dirty Magic gets 1 shot from his Odin. He gets 1 shot here, and then it can't attack anymore. And even though, again, Dirty Magic is less breach vulnerable, we have to consider that Odin has a finite number of attacks before he's done. And with that Steel Splitter down, well, that's the Odin's only shot. Is this enough damage? Dirty Magic is deploying all the freeze he has. Oh, but he only gets to reach for 1, and then the Odin can't fire anymore. I think that's game. He only gets to reach for 1, and the Odin can't fire anymore. And it looks like Timex is going to defeat Dirty Magic, so Dirty Magic is actually going to resign here, and that was an amazing game of Prismata. That was an absolute pleasure to watch. Very close. It just boiled down, I think, to Odin not being able to fire again. Just a finite number of attack. Like, this number is a little bit misleading in that this Odin can't attack anymore. It needs Steel Splitters, and without any economy, Dirty Magic can't buy any more Steel Splitters to activate that. So this is a great little juxtaposition of strategies here. In general, Prismata creates situations of asymmetry, which makes it very interesting to watch, and there are so many points in this game where either player could have done something different, and exploring those lines of play is a whole can of worms, and that's what makes Prismata so great, is it's very unclear as to what the dominant strategy will be in most cases, and there's so many different ways that both players could have played this game out, especially in a set this diverse. It just goes to show how crazy Prismata is, and I'm really looking forward to seeing more games between these players. So far, the Prismata Alpha World Championships has been producing, basically nothing but good games. And if you enjoyed watching this, as I know my commentary was very long-winded, in general you can expect it to be like a lot quicker from me, but I really wanted to go into detail and explain everything in case you're a little bit new to Prismata. If you enjoyed watching this, please do let me know by leaving me a comment and a thumbs up on this video. And if you're looking for more Age of Empires 2, don't worry, that's on the way too. This is just something extra. But I'm very passionate about Prismata. I started playing this game in like February, several months ago, and man, I haven't looked back. This game is incredible. I never knew how much I wanted a game like this. It's like chess with a ridiculous amount of variety. You could think of it as Hearthstone with no randomness. Like this game is very, very fair. And it sort of captures my favorite aspects of games like, Hearthstone and Age of Empires 2, and just kind of puts them all into one in a way that just works out really well. I think that if you play Age of Empires 2, that you kind of just feel right at home here. The concepts of like building up your economy, choosing your technology, resources and whatnot, being able to defend, being able to attack, there are just so many concepts that carry over here from RTS games, and I would say that this is just a wonderful competitive game that I'm really looking forward to seeing how it turns out in the future. The developers are also very, very receptive to feedback, and I am as well, so let me know what you guys think of this video, and as always, if you decide to try the game, I definitely recommend leaving your feedback for the developers. Practice against the bots, have some fun, watch replays and whatnot. Prismata is a really cool game. I look forward to seeing how this one turns out. Now, if you enjoyed watching this, there are some other Prismata videos already on my YouTube channel. I plan to, throw in a couple of them every now and then as something a little bit on the side, depending on whether or not you guys are interested. I think this is a really cool game, and I hope that if you give it a try, it's something that you learn to appreciate a lot too. And yeah, definitely the developers will probably be improving the UI and graphics as well. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, guys. Your support's really appreciated. If you want to get into my Twitch stream and whatnot, I've got everything you need in the video description below, instructions on how to get a key and whatnot. This game is completely free to play, though. If you watch this like after the fact, it might have already gone public. Just right now, it's in alpha. So yeah, I'll see you all next time. Thank you so much for watching, and GG well played here between Timex and Dirty Magic. A wonderful game, and I look forward to bringing you guys more awesome Prismata content, Age of Empires 2 content, as well as things relating to other games. See you all next time. GG well played.